Welcome back to my top 100 board game series. This is part 9, numbers 20 to 11. These are games that if I found out someone liked them, I'd instantly think they're cool. Like, honestly, I thought you were kind of a loser, but now I see this game in your collection, you're a legend. We should hang out sometime. Oh, you're busy? Okay, let's get to the list. And number 20 is Waterfall Park, which is probably the purest negotiation game you can find. It's all about making deals with the other players to try and set up businesses to make the most money. It was originally called Chinatown, and it's now been re-released as Waterfall Park with this amusement park theme. I'm not a huge fan of the theme, but I do like some of the tweaks that they've made to the gameplay, which is why I now own this copy instead of Chinatown. You're trying to build businesses on this board, and every round you're given some numbered cards. These refer to the plots on the board, so when you get them, you put one of your bases on them to show that you own it. You're then given some of these business tiles, things like an ice cream shop or a cinema, all different attractions in the amusement park. And so you can place those tiles onto the spots that you own to try and build those businesses. But for a business to make a lot of money, you need to complete it. So you need to get all of the same type of an attraction adjacent to each other on the board. And that's where the negotiation comes in. If I start building my ice cream shop here, I'm going to want to get the spots adjacent to it so I can expand. So green has this spot next door, so I need to try and get that off of them. I can offer money, or I could offer other attraction tiles, or I could offer other spots on the board. If I'm next to a spot that they really want, then maybe we can just make a trade. The negotiation is really freeform. You can offer money, tiles, plots of land, or you could create a three-way trade where you give something to one player, they give it to another player, and it gives you that feeling of being a businessman, wheeling and dealing, trying to get a cheap deal, trying to sort of confuse people by offering something so complicated that they don't realize that it's better for you than it is for them. As the rounds go on and the board fills up, it becomes so important which cards you get, which plots of land are going to be yours. But you select certain cards, you don't get to keep all of them, and it's such a tough decision. You obviously want the ones that are right next to you, but if you've got ones that are next to other people that can help them finish their business, that's going to be such a good bartering tool, especially if you want something from them. The key thing I love about Waterfall Park over Chinatown is it's easier to get those adjacencies. In the original game, it was divided up into like 5 districts, and if you would get a location that's not near what anyone else wants at the moment, it's useless in negotiation, so you can't get the money that you want for it, let alone maybe build what you need. In this game, it's much more likely that you're going to be next to something useful, because each space is next to 6 other tiles. In the original game, it was only next to 4 other tiles, and the board is only split into 2, so you're just much more likely to see the potential in things, to have something that is either useful to you or to someone else, so you feel less screwed over by the luck of the deck, and it creates more negotiation because there's always something you want from another player. I'm not a fan of the chintzy plastic inserts, and the art and the theme just don't capture what this game's about. It's a game of wheeling and dealing, of being proper business people and trying to get deals made, and I just don't think Amusement Park gets that across at all. But nevertheless, I do like the changes they made to the gameplay, and I love the game, either version. And number 19 is Celestia, which is my favorite push your luck game, and that's because it combines collective push your luck. You're all in it together with a nice bit of bluffing. You're all on this airship together, and you're trying to get as high up into the clouds as possible to get the most amount of points. Every round, one player will be the captain. They have to roll the dice, and they get some hazards that they've got to deal with. They have to play some cards to deal with them, so if there's a bird that comes out, I have to play a matching card. If I can't play the cards to deal with the dice, then the ship is going to crash, and everyone will get nothing for this round. But before I have the chance to play those cards and save the ship, everyone has the opportunity to get out. If they think that I don't have enough cards to deal with this, then they can choose to get out here, and they will take a card from this location. That's worth some points. Now, if they waited and got out later, they'd get more points, but that's the whole push your luck thing. If they think it's gonna happen now, then now's the time to get out, because if you stay in and it crashes, you get nothing. As you get further up into the clouds, you roll more dice. It's harder to deal with those hazards. Plus, if you've been spending them on previous ones, suddenly your hand is thinning. You don't get to draw up. So the less cards people have, the much more likely it is that you're going to crash. And of course, you don't know what cards everyone has. You might only roll one symbol, but if the player doesn't have that specific card, then that's it. It doesn't matter how big their hand is, they don't have it. And that's where the bluffing and deduction come into it, because you have to put your trust in this captain. You can look at how thick their hand is and make a guess about whether they've got it, but you also can just ask them. They could say, yeah, I've got it, don't worry about it, because they want everyone to crash with them. But sometimes you want everyone to get out because you think, no, actually, I'm going to get some points on my own here. So there's just this great bluff, double bluff situation of what do you say to the group and who believes you? It's almost not mentioned in the rulebook, but it's such a crucial part of playing this game that you can play the odds just like any push your luck game, but you're also playing the players. And the best moments of this game for me are where people have pulled off a really good lie. Like the last time I played this game, I managed to convince people to get out right at the last minute. I said that I didn't have the cards. Everyone else got out. I got through to the end and I scored loads of points. And that was it, I'd won. And it creates those big moments, those betrayals. Or if you're the one person that got out, you were convinced something was up and everyone else crashes. That feels incredible. You feel so smug. Celestia is just one of the most entertaining games I've ever played, and it comes in a small package as well. This one is brilliant. This video is sponsored by FlexiSpot, who make outstanding standing desks for standing at, like this E7 Plus, which has 4 legs, so it doesn't wobble like some standing desks out there. And when you're tired out standing at an outstanding standing desk, you can press your preset button and go straight down to unstanding, or sitting as people used to call it. I love having a standing desk in my office because it feels so much better for my back than just sitting in a chair all day. I've been using this FlexiSpot E5 that I bought for years now, and it's exactly what I needed. You can customize the perfect height to sit and to stand at, and there's 4 memory settings, so if you have someone in your life who's shorter than you can give them their own tiny preset and make them feel like they're normal. I got mine with these solid bamboo desktops, but if you want, you can put your own desktop on because the E7 Plus can lift 200 kilograms. That's like 2 of me. And a bit extra, but not as much extra since I had a kid. They're really easy to put together and great value for the price. And if you're in the UK, there's a 30% off early bird price on the E7 Plus this week. Honestly, if you want a desk you can stand at that stands out, and you can't stand the idea of standing at a bog standard standing desk, then get a FlexiSpot and use the link below so they know I sent you. Understand? And number 18 is Watergate, which is an incredible 2-player game that manages to pack so much strategy and theme into such a simple package. It's set during the Watergate scandal. One of you will play as the Nixon administration, and they are trying to gain enough political momentum to ride out this scandal. Whereas the other player plays as the journalists that are trying to uncover it all. They are trying to piece together the bits of evidence that they can find, connect them to the informants to bring Nixon down. And the heart of it is a tug of war. Every round there will be 3 pieces of evidence that the 2 players can fight over. If they can get the evidence on their side of the board by the end of the round, then they will get to place it on this pegboard. The journalists are trying to get the pieces of evidence that match the right colors to connect up pathways to get to the edges of the board, to these informants. If they can connect Nixon to 2 informants, they win the game. But if Nixon wins the evidence, he can place it face down, blocking off pathways, stopping them from being able to achieve that. Meanwhile, Nixon is trying to win these political momentum tokens. As soon as he gets 5 of those, he automatically wins the game. And then you're also trying to fight over the initiative, because this is crucial. This allows you to either play 5 cards on a turn or 4 cards. If you lose the initiative again and again, you're losing the power to be able to play your cards. And these are the key to the game. It's these cards that allow you to move things towards you on the tug of war track. But they also have really powerful events. For example, the journalist can bring informants in. They're going to need them to win the game. Or Nixon can try and flip over those informants, get them on his side so that they're now useless. Some of the cards are so powerful that as soon as you play them for their event, they're out of the game. You can't use them again. But then you've got to decide, do you want to take this card out of the game? Because every round it comes up into your deck, you get to use it for its tug of war power. If you use it for event, you won't get that again. The decks are asymmetric. Nixon feels like this aggressive bully, that he's got the power of the country behind him, whereas the journalists have to really fight to get their victories. There are a lot of historically themed card games that are incredibly complex and long, and that they can be a real struggle to get to through a first timer, a Twilight struggle. But in Watergate, it's surprisingly easy to understand that all of the cards make sense when you're in the game for that first time. There's something so exciting about the cards. They feel so strong that they make you feel that you're always 1 or 2 rounds away from winning, that if you just push through, you'll get there. But it gives you this full sense of security. You take your eyes off your opponent, and that's where you can fail. Watergate is an absolute masterpiece in how much it manages to evoke, how much strategy you get from these cards, but also just the experience. It feels like a much bigger game. The decisions are so intense. The detail, the thematic underpinning of it all just comes together to deliver this huge thing, but with simple rules. It's not a long game, and it's in a small box. There's just very few 2-player games that give you this amount for so little. At number 17 is Libertalia Winds of Galecrest, which is a game about being greedy, selfish pirates trying to make the most money at the other player's expense. Like Waterfall Park, this is another older game that's been brought back with a theme and artwork style that I'm not really into, but they have made improvements to the gameplay, which is why I have this version. At its heart, it's a card game. You've each got a hand of pirate cards, and every turn you will pick one of these cards simultaneously, and then they all get revealed and they get put in number order. This is the rank of the pirates, and the player with the highest rank will get first dibs on the loot for that round. So you can see what loot's available for the coming rounds. You know what you want because some are a lot better than others, and so sometimes you'll play a really high rank in the hope that you'll get the right thing. But of course, other players are playing cards. You don't know what they're going to play. It might be higher than yours. And what's really tricky is that everyone has the same hand of cards at the start of the game. But it's not just about the loot. You also have actions on these pirate cards, and they happen in this order, with the lowest rank going first. And they can mess with proceedings. So this smuggler here allows you to take a loot token from the current day. That happens before the loot gets divided up. So you actually get first dibs ahead of the player who played the highest card. How these cards interact with each other is what makes the game so interesting. There's always surprises to be had in the game, always things that you've got to be prepared for when you're picking your card. There's so much to consider that it makes just such a simple decision really tricky. And you also want to plan the order in which you play your cards, because some of these cards will end up in front of you, scoring gold every round, a little engine that you build. And knowing what cards everyone else has, because you have it as well, is so crucial to the brilliance of the game. There are a lot of games like this where you pick a card face down and reveal and consequences happen. But Libertalia is so much better than those games because you can see ahead for everything. All of the information is open in the game, the tiebreaker, the loot, the cards that everyone has. And yet, where you do get interesting complications is in rounds 2 and 3, where your hands start to diverge. You get new cards that come into your hand, and everyone gets the same ones, but it now starts to create differences based on what you've previously played. You will have a card left from round 1 that someone else won't have, and now that will become much more useful because it isn't competing with its duplicate. And it's the way those cards are designed that allow for clever play. It makes you feel like a scheming pirate that managed to pull something off and get away with all this gold. I love player interaction in games, and I love having to consider what everyone else is going to do. And Libertalia is just such a great game for that. And number 16 is Snake Oil, which is just the best game for making people laugh. It's all about pitching weird and wonderful products. So every round, one player will be the judge, and they take on a role. They might be a babysitter, or a pop singer, or a teacher. And then all the other players have a hand of cards. They're just simple words. They have to combine two of those words to create a product, a drum rain or a love drum. And they get 30 seconds to pitch their product to explain why a teacher would really want it. You might pitch them a discipline monkey. As a teacher, it's a lot of hard work trying to keep your kids in line. So what you need is a discipline monkey, because they're going to do the disciplining for you. Kids love monkeys. It's something to focus on, and you don't have to take the wrath of the kids anymore. You can leave it to the discipline monkey. That is just a very quick idea of how you could play this game. But basically, you get, 5 pitches from your friends, and you decide which is the best idea or which you found the funniest. And then you each take it in turns to be the judge. I love that it encourages creativity. In a lot of party games like Apples and Apples and Cards Against Humanity, you just pick a punchline from a hand of cards. In this, you come up with a punchline. And yet, it's surprisingly easy to do it. The simplicity of these words means that you are forced to be creative. You have to crowbar some ridiculous idea. Nothing will stand out to you as the obvious answer. And so you have to take a bit of time to think about it. And when you're describing it, it's always gonna be strange and weird, and that makes it funnier. I've played a lot of other pitching games like this, and Snake Oil is by far my favorite. It has a real simplicity that just requires you to come up with the funny stuff rather than the game ever providing it. There's nothing inherently funny about any of the cards in this. It's just what you do with it. And that makes you feel great because you're making other people laugh, and it makes other people laugh more because you're not being fed the humor by what's written on the cards. I played this one on my birthday this year, and it was so great to go back to it because I've got rid of a lot of my party games in recent years, but this is one that I always have incredible memories of the times I've played it. And with the right group, there's just nothing like it. I absolutely love it. And I just wish it would come back in a smaller box. And number 15 is Nothing Personal, which is a ruthless negotiation game where you are trying to gain respect in the world of the mafia. You are exerting your influence and trying to gain control of the different members that make up the mafia. This is the hierarchy. At the top, you've got the capo, and then going down, you've got the different roles: the underboss, the counselor, the enforcer, the racketeer, the bean counter. These are the different members of the mafia right now, but these characters can change. They are represented by different gangster cards, each with a name and a special ability, and you will be taking it in turns to place your influence on these characters to try and claim control of them so that you can get them to do your bidding and get points from them. You take it in turns to play these influence cards. These allow you to place tokens on the gangsters. This one allows you to place 3 on a gambler. Once you've had a chance to play these influence cards, you will go down the hierarchy and score points for who controls them. So if you've got the most tokens on a gangster, you're gonna score their points. And you also get some money off them. If there's a tie, the player who controls the capo and gets to wear this shiny metal ring can break that tie. And that's where some negotiation can come in, because now those 2 players that are fighting out for the tie will want to bribe the capo so that they get the points. And that happens a lot in the game. You are desperately trying to get control over other players, so you're bribing them not to place their tokens on the gangster that you want. You're bribing them to use actions so that they work in your favor. Even these influence cards will allow other players to do certain things, so you want a bit of money so that you'll give it to Ben and not Anthony. Once you've gone down the hierarchy and scored the points, you then come back up and take their actions. Each of the spots in the hierarchy has a special action. Some of them allow you to mess with the influence tokens, so you can throw the control of a gangster from one player to another before they get to take their action. And most of the characters have an action on them, so instead of doing what's on the board, you can do that. This guy you can send to prison to get to draw 3 influence cards. And if you don't like that, you can always try to make a move. You pick an adjacent spot in the hierarchy that you want to move up to and roll a dice. And if you get high enough a number, you will replace that gangster, take their job, and win respect and steal respect from them because now you're higher up the ladder than them. The game has this ordered chaos to it. Gangsters will be switching hands all the time. People will be killed, they'll be sent to prison. Like, so much is changing all the time, and you just have to kind of flow with that chaos and make the most points whilst it's going on. I love that it's all out in the open. You can see what actions are going to be available, what points people are going to get if they manage to control each gangster, and how many points they currently have, so you know who's winning, who you need to try and hold back. I played this game just last night and had a brilliant time. You get to the climax of the game and you know who's winning and you know who you need to take down. And so you've got these crazy, ambitious things that players try to do. I had one player that was trying to make a move and they would win 4 respect. The other player would lose 4, but they needed to roll one thing on the dice. They only had 1 out of 6 chance of getting it and they didn't hit it. But then you can spend $10 to re-roll. They did that and they didn't get it. And then they spent another $10 and didn't get it. But if it had happened, it would have been incredible. But just the fact that you can go for these huge moves in this game and sometimes they come off is what makes it so special. And number 14 is Patchwork, which is the original Tetris tile laying puzzle. And for me, by far the best. It's a 2-player only game where you each have a board and you are taking these Tetris type shapes and putting them on your board to try and fill it up as much as possible, because at the end of the game you're going to get negative points for all of your empty spaces. And that in itself is a satisfying puzzle that tickles the right part of my brain, but it's the rest of the game that makes it special. You're fighting against 3 problems. The first is the currency in this game. You need enough buttons to be able to buy the pieces that you want, and the better ones are more expensive. You'll get more buttons when you pass certain spots on the board, but only for as many buttons that you've sewed onto your quilt. So some pieces have buttons on, and these build up your engine to get more currency later in the game. If you're building a lot of blank tiles with no buttons, then how are you going to ever get any more buttons to be able to buy good tiles? The second problem is time. Every patch that you're sewing onto your quilt takes time to sew, and it moves you along this time track. What that means is that you only have a certain amount of time to finish your quilt, to fill it up. So if you take pieces that require a long time to sew, you're going to run out of time and end up with loads of empty spaces, which is minus points. But there's also a really interesting struggle with the other player, because it's the person that spent the least amount of time that gets to take the next turn. So if I sew something that only takes 2 time, I'm still the furthest back on the time track, so I get another turn. And so you can use that to your advantage to plan out turns where you get 2 or 3 tiles in a row because you've kind of saved up that time. But if you race ahead at the right moment, you'll go past these patch tiles, which you then can collect and add to your board. The other player misses out. These are amazing because they fill the singular gaps on your board that all these shapes have created by not meshing together properly. And they help you complete a 7x7 cluster, which is the goal that you're racing towards. The first player to do that gets 7 points, which is why you're so desperately trying to fit everything together with no gaps. When you first play this game, you focus on just having this nice, neat board. So you buy the shapes that are really easy to fit together because that's what you inherently want to do. But the more you play it, you realize those are the more expensive pieces. They're going to take you more time and more currency. They're going to cost you points. So there's this balance between taking the ugly, difficult pieces because they're cheap, but also trying to make them work so that you can fill as much space as possible. And it's just a brilliant struggle. This is one of my favorite couples games, and it's so easy to get into. You could pick it up in seconds and start playing. But the more you play it, especially with the same person, the more depth gets unlocked. And you realize that underneath, there's this really competitive strategy game. And number 13 is Merchants and Marauders, which is the definitive epic pirate game, where you can decide, do you want to be a pirate, or you can just be a good, honest merchant selling goods across the Caribbean, or you can sell some goods for a bit and then turn into being a pirate. It's a sandbox game, which means that there are so many different things that you can do and ways to try and get points, and each of them will tell a different story. You start with a small ship and a captain, and the world is your oyster. Each of these islands has a port that you can visit, so you could go and get some cargo at one, and then you realize that over here they really want bananas. So if you can get enough bananas to sell at this port, then you can get a glory point. You need 10 glory points to win the game, and there are loads of different ways that you can get them. You can also sell goods for gold, and you're going to need money to upgrade your ship, to buy new weaponry, buy a bigger ship, or mend your ship when you've got in a fight. But gold itself is also worth a point. If you can get 10 gold and take it to your home base and bury it in your treasure chest, that's worth a point. And if you do feel like being a pirate, you can get glory points by attacking other ships. There are NPC naval ships sailing around, as well as other pirates and the other players, so you can attack any of those ships and try and steal their cargo or sink their ship. Battles are quite a complicated affair that involve rolling a lot of dice. You first have to find a ship with scouting, then you can get involved in firing cannons at each other, and if you want, you can try and board a ship, get into hand-to-hand combat, and kill their captain to steal their ship from them. Each of the ships has an allegiance to a country, English, Spanish, Dutch. So when you attack a specific nation, you now put a bounty on your head, and that means that those NPC ships will actually hunt you down and start fights with you. There are so many mechanisms in the game that help to emulate what being a pirate would be like. So much detail that really adds to the theme, but also adds to the amount of rules that you got to keep up with. There are hundreds of cards in the game, and they all add to the story that you're creating. And those stories are what keep the game interesting, because there can be a fair amount of downtime. It's a very complicated game. There's a lot of options on your turn. So whilst you're waiting for other players, at least you've got a story to follow. You've got something to be interested in. And because there's so much interaction on the board, or the potential for it, you got to watch what the other players are doing. Understand, are they improving their ship to protect themselves, or are they going to come and attack you and turn pirate soon? I love the freedom that the game gives you, that every time you play, you'll end up doing something different. And I love that you can decide to be good or bad, that usually you'll start off trying to make enough money to be able to afford a big ship, and then you can become a pirate and start tearing up the board. I've played a lot of pirate games, and nothing comes close to the detail that Merchants and Marauders gives. It really envelops you in that world in a way that other games can't. Now, there's a price to pay for that, and that's a lot of complexity and a long game, but for the occasion that you can bring it out, it's totally worth it. And number 12 is Detective, a modern crime game, which is the deepest, most immersive detective game I've ever played. I love this whole genre of cooperative mystery games. And this isn't my top, wait for the next video for that one, but this is one that I just absolutely love from start to finish, that I was so invested in the story and the case. The base game is a campaign. It plays over 5 cases. Each of those are a self-contained mystery that might take you 2 or 3 hours to complete, but then there's a wider narrative that crosses all of it. So it's such a rich world to get immersed in. There are so many different characters, and it spans across multiple decades. It is set in modern times, but it calls back to crimes and situations that have happened in World War II. And this is one of the things I love about it the most, is it plays with ideas that come from the real world. So whilst the specific characters are fictional, it's using a framework and history from the world that we live in, and to the point where you will have to look up information on the internet. There will be historical references, things that happen in World War II, and there's just so much going on. You've got pictures of each of the characters that's like a Polaroid photo. You can write the information you learn about each on the back. You'll have these long interrogation reports on your laptop. So it doesn't use an app, but it uses a website. And so if you bring that up on your laptop and one of you is kind of reading these interrogation reports or like forensic files, there's so much information to pour through. And I really like the simple mechanisms of the game that just make it feel tense. You have a certain amount of time to spend each day. Every card, every lead that you follow is going to take you time. Some more than others, some in unexpected ways. And so it's really stressful deciding how to spend your time. You're not going to see all of the cards, and you have to come to terms with that. But the way it's written is that you will get tiny little bits of information from everything. There's nothing that you'll miss that will lose you the game. You just have to kind of piece it all together in your head and come to conclusions. And that's the best kind of detective game, where there's no wrong way to do it. It's just all about the discussion you have and the assumptions you make, and can you come to the right answer? And with each lead that you follow, that will open up more. So you'll make a note of where you can go so that later on you can decide, oh, okay, let's go back to that place now. I also really love the LA Crimes expansion because that is a completely different campaign set in the 80s that tells another really rich, immersive story, and I got totally invested in that one as well. I'd love to see more of this like long form content for this game. I know they've got a couple of like mini, one-off cases, but there's just something about the ambition and the depth that they were able to go in with LA Crimes and the original one that just feels so much more rewarding. Now, they kind of spun off and did Vienna Connection, which was also in my top 100. So really, I just want to see the people behind this game making more rich storytelling games like this, because they definitely know what they're doing. At number 11 is My Favorite Things, which is a party game that I absolutely love because it's all about how well you know your friends. It's all about trying to guess their favorite things in a certain category. So each player will give a category to the player to their left. So, for example, someone might ask me what my favorite colors of t-shirt are, and then I will be secretly ranking them because behind each card is a secret number. So I've put white as my favorite color of t-shirt. And so when I put that card back in, now the number is hidden. Nobody else knows how I've ranked it. And I'm going to write out 6 cards with different colors of t-shirt, all secretly ranked. And then with those cards, we're going to play a simple trick-taking game. But I don't play with those cards. That they go back to the person who came up with the category. Now they are using those cards to try and win tricks, guessing what value I've put on those different colors of t-shirt. And then everyone else in the game is playing with a deck of cards of a category of another friend. So someone else is doing cocktails, and here's a Hemingway daiquiri, and someone else is doing their favorite characters from The Simpsons. Nobody knows what the number is that they're playing. So my friend probably knows that my favorite color of t-shirt is white. So they know which is the number 1 card. That's a powerful tool to have. But what do they know about the other friends? So someone's played a Hemingway daiquiri. Is that their favorite cocktail? Maybe that's more like a number 3. And then comic book guy, it's a good character, but is that really anyone's favorite Simpsons character? So maybe you could actually win this trick with something like blue. That's not my favorite t-shirt, but it could be my second or third favorite. So everyone plays a card into the trick, and then you reveal the numbers, and the player with the best thing wins that trick. And it's just such a fun reveal because you're learning things about your friends that you didn't know. Like, these could be your oldest friends and you know them incredibly well, but you've never sort of sat them down and asked them to rank their 5 favorite cocktails. So now you've learned that the Hemingway daiquiri is actually only their 5th favorite cocktail. It creates conversations in a way that other party games don't. And I just love how it brings a group together. And there's a clever little wrinkle to the game, which is that you all pick your least favorite of something. So my least favorite t-shirt color is red. So when they play this card, it would typically lose unless it goes up against someone's favorite thing. So if I know that someone's favorite Simpsons character is Lenny, then I would play the least favorite of that because it kind of breaks the trick. It allows me to win, to trump a favorite. But it requires you to not just know which of this category is their least favorite, but also which of someone else's is their favorite. So it's like quite a tricky thing to pull off, but when you do it, it's such a cool move. And the more you play it, the more creative you get with the categories. I love getting people to rank their family members when they're not in front of them, or like their colleagues or school friends. Before I found this game, I'd always wanted a party game where you get to play on how well you know your friends. And all the ones I tried had just never worked because they often require you to be negative, to sort of make judgments of each other. And this is just the opposite. It's such a positive sort of celebration of how well you know your friends. It's always works for me, this one. I've played it with so many different people, and it's one I just return to all the time, especially if I'm like meeting up with an old friend, because I just know I'm always going to have a blast. That was part 9 of my top 100 board games. If you want to buy any of them, there are links below. To see the rest of the series, please subscribe to the channel, and you can get exclusive videos of mine by signing up to my Patreon. I'm John Perkis, thanks for watching.